I, Robert Gabriel Mugabe,
do swear that I will well and truly serve Zimbabwe
and observe the laws of Zimbabwe, so help me God.
Mugabe came to power as a freedom fighter.
We are at war with Ian Smith.
I don't believe in black majority rule ever in Rhodesia, not in 1,000 years.
We have tried passive resistance in the past. Our people got locked up. Our people got shot.
Everyone vested their hopes and dreams for a new Zimbabwe in him.
Mugabe inspired the nation.
He brutalized and tortured tens of thousands of people. And one of his biggest legacies was that he led the country into economic disaster.
I think Mugabe destroyed everything that could have been described as a democratic society in Zimbabwe. He could have been the next Nelson Mandela.
After more than 50 years of colonial British rule, Rhodesia, now known as Zimbabwe, was pushing for independence from Britain, like other parts of colonial Africa. The British government was prepared to work towards this with the Rhodesians, but only on the basis of a policy of no independence before majority rule. Unhappy with Britain's conditions and the rising black nationalist movement, the controlling white population voted in the first Rhodesian-born Prime Minister, Conservative Rhodesian front leader Ian Smith. Smith set Rhodesia on a path to independence, with or without Britain's involvement.
This is something we are going to do. Who can stop us? And it is our intention to maintain Rhodesia, the Rhodesia that we all know so well.
Mr. Wilson's answer to the Declaration of Independence has been to outlaw the Rhodesian government and oppose it through economic sanctions.
One of the most ominous developments in the few days that preceded this illegal action has been the progressive creation of a police state and the sickeningly familiar apparatus and attitudes of authoritarian rule.
The black majority now saw nothing for them in this white-ruled Rhodesia, paving the way for conflict, which would soon become open warfare.
It was Ian Smith's racist policies that started this guerrilla war, which led to thousands of mostly black Zimbabweans dying in this war of liberation. People were fed up with the white minority government. They wanted a black Zimbabwean to rule them, and Mugabe was that one person. And he represented a brighter future for Zimbabweans. He was seen as this fearless freedom fighter. He managed to change the narrative, and people in Africa love him for that.
Robert Mugabe was born in 1924 in Mashonaland, southern Rhodesia.
Mugabe was a gifted boy, and he even trained as a teacher in his early teens.
4 years later, a scholarship took him to South Africa to complete further training. It was here that Mugabe became interested in politics, attending political rallies.
Mugabe said he was influenced by Ghandi's teachings, and that his time at university in South Africa, the same university that Nelson Mandela went to, was a turning point in his life.
By 1960, the pull for freedom from white rule consumed Mugabe so much that he quit teaching to devote himself full-time to the cause. He aligned himself with the NDP, National Democratic Party, led by Joshua Nkomo in the fight against Ian Smith. Mugabe spoke of African nationalism, land and liberation, and openly called for a guerrilla war against the ruling elite, leading to his arrest as an agitator.
He actually spent more than a decade as a political prisoner.
Outside prison, frustration and a lack of action from Nkomo's party was gathering speed. A new political party called ZANU, Zimbabwe African National Union, was created, and Mugabe was appointed Secretary General in absentia.
In those early days when he joined politics, Mugabe's popularity started to grow.
He was seen as that figurehead that because of his leadership qualities and also because he was an orator, he spoke very well. He spoke very good English. So he was able to explain what the black Zimbabweans really wanted. And he was seen as this liberation hero.
Dictators sell themselves to the public as a man of the people who will solve their problems quickly and rapidly without all the other pesky rules that box in other politicians. And that's why people trust them.
Blacks made up 95% of Rhodesia's population, and they now had Mugabe officially fighting their cause.
We wish to warn that no maneuvers, secret or open, that seek to preserve the Smith regime under one guise or another can ever gain our acceptance.
It is a fascist regime, it is a racist regime, and that's all it is.
For Mugabe, there was only one way to deal with Smith.
Or not. We are at war with Ian Smith. And the war must continue until he's able to tell the British government that he has surrendered. But before he has surrendered, well, the fighting has got to continue.
To combat Ian Smith's despotic and racist policies, Mugabe formed an allegiance with Nkomo. Together, they set their guerrilla army on Smith's Rhodesian security forces. Escalating into a bush war, farms owned by whites were attacked, while civil unrest in towns and cities erupted.
We have tried passive resistance in the past. Our people got locked up. Our people got shot.
Various attempts were made by the British and Americans to end the violence, but talks ended in stalemate. Smith refused to change his stance on his anti-black majority rule.
Until there is some sign that the white Rhodesians are willing to accept the principle of an early move to majority rule, until that principle has been accepted by the white Rhodesians, the British government does not intend to take for the moment another initiative.
And as far as the United States is concerned, we will give our full support to the immediate resumption of negotiation designed to bring about majority rule in Rhodesia.
I don't believe in black majority rule ever in Rhodesia, not in 1,000 years.
We haven't come here to bring about a ceasefire. We have come here to determine whether Zimbabwe shall be free or not.
Talks broke down, and on the ground, violent clashes became more frequent and widespread.
This is one of the latest atrocities in the guerrilla war. It happened last month at a British-run mission near Umtali in eastern Rhodesia. 12 whites, including missionaries, their wives and children, were dragged into a nearby field and murdered with a savagery that was horrifying even by the standards of this brutal 6-year war. The butchery was widely assumed to be the work of guerrillas belonging to Robert Mugabe's ZANU, which is based across the border in Mozambique.
After 15 years of fighting, the British got involved again to bring an end to the violence once and for all. On the 21st of December 1979, the Lancaster House Agreement was signed in London. It stipulated the creation of a new country, to be known as the Republic of Zimbabwe. It was subject to 2 conditions. Firstly, ceasefire would be declared. Secondly, democratic elections would be held to determine its first prime minister. The black nationalist groups ZANU and ZAPU, who had been waging the increasingly violent insurgency, put forward candidates. Standing for ZAPU was Joshua Nkomo, and for ZANU, Nkomo's ally, Robert Mugabe.
We had free and fair elections, and the result was what you now know. It was a definite expression of the wishes of our people.
Mugabe's ZANU party won the majority, making him Zimbabwe's first prime minister.
I, Robert Gabriel Mugabe, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Zimbabwe and observe the laws of Zimbabwe.
Mugabe was so popular with Zimbabweans because for the first time we had black majority rule in the country.
He came to power at a moment of national crisis and change, when Zimbabwe had obtained its independence. And people vested their hopes and dreams that he would create this new, fresh Zimbabwe that would deliver for the people.
He brought hope to a nation that had suffered for a very long time under the Ian Smith regime. And he was a very charismatic leader.
Mugabe's rhetoric was exactly what the people of Zimbabwe wanted to hear.
He employed armed struggle to achieve our political independence. Now we must employ that political independence to achieve our economic freedom.
Most dictators inevitably are corrupt. Though they may initially try to act in the nation's interests, power always corrupts. So in the case of Mugabe, he started off investing in education, in healthcare, in infrastructure.
Everyone vested their hopes and dreams for a new Zimbabwe in him. Dictators exploit vulnerabilities. You have somebody like Mugabe, who exploits the end of colonialism and brings in a new form of government and absolutely transforms the system in a heartbeat.
But it wasn't long before power and paranoia went to Mugabe's head. Nkomo was sacked, accused of plotting to overthrow him. Removing Nkomo was Mugabe's first step to ultimate rule and dictatorship.
The key to survival for any dictatorship is finding out where the threats are and nullifying those threats as quickly as possible.
(1980). Zimbabwe was finally free from both British and white rule, thanks to freedom fighter and man of the people, Robert Mugabe.
I, Robert Gabriel Mugabe.
There was euphoria in the country. Independence at last, finally Zimbabwe was free and people were free to do whatever they wanted. And they really hoped that the nationalists would deliver on their promises.
But whilst the black population were enjoying new opportunities, cracks were already forming within the political sphere.
There is a lot of apparent animosity between certain members of your party and his party.
No. In ZAPO, there is no such thing as animosity towards other people. That we don't have.
How real is the animosity existing between you and Joshua?
Well, I don't know. I have no hatred or a spirit of hostility towards him. I invited him to join my government, and he accepted it.
The rising tensions mirrored Zimbabwe's divided political allegiances.
Joshua Nkomo's ZAPU party lost the political battle in parliament against Robert Mugabe's ZANU faction. But in his Matabele homeland, Nkomo's support was unchallenged. And captured weapons showed that some followers of Nkomo weren't prepared to accept the uneasy status quo.
To secure the loyalty of both his rivals and people, Mugabe focused his attention on building up the army.
Life in the regular army will be quite different to that in the guerrilla units. About 25,000 guerrillas have so far been formed into battalions. The so-called super sausage machine is processing about 3,000 men a month. The training isn't comprehensive, but merely the first stage.
Right, 1, 2, 3, go!
At the top, the 6 most senior positions in the new army are divided equally among the 3 factions.
Mugabe wanted to project an image of strength, and he did this by providing funding to the military. He needed to keep the military happy to prevent them from staging a coup against them. But he also wanted to show to the world that Zimbabwe was a strong country with a strong military.
Mugabe spared no expense.
This large army has already put a strain on the economy. There aren't enough barracks for the men. Yet the government is already spending a fifth of its budget on defense. When the integration process is complete, the new Zimbabwean army will number between 60 and 65,000 men. This is an enormous and expensive regular force for a country with a population of 7 million.
If the military rebels against them, they're in trouble. Idi Amin in Uganda was aware of this. He came to power in a coup, so he knew a coup could replace him.
They have to coup-proof the regime. They have to weaken the military. Mugabe did this by creating parallel armies that could offset the power of the national army.
Mugabe even brought in North Korean forces to train his infamous crack unit, the 5th Brigade. He didn't hesitate in putting his new army to use. To maintain ultimate rule, thousands of Nkomo's supporters were massacred during what was known as Gukurahundi.
Prime Minister Robert Mugabe is determined to wipe out opposition in Matabeleland, home of the ZAPU party and its leader Joshua Nkomo. Government troops swept through northern Matabeleland looking for the so-called dissident supporters of Joshua Nkomo. Thousands are believed to have died or sustained horrific injuries during that search.
Sadly, in just a few years, the freedom fighter changed from one who had helped to remove this brutal white minority government to actually brutalizing his own people.
Mugabe had a huge security apparatus, and he used them as a tool against his opponents. He used them to kill over 20,000 people, and he used them to torture and to brutalize anyone who opposed him.
Numerous talks held between Mugabe and Nkomo to end the bloodshed broke down.
In regard to the ZANU-ZAPU relationship, I'm sorry to say we've been deadlocked for far too long on the question of unity. And the Central Committee of my party has recently decided that the talks be discontinued, for they are serving no useful purpose.
I have suffered. I have worked so hard for this country before independence. During the war, I worked so hard after independence to make our independence stick. And this man today turns around and he calls me a traitor. Me, a traitor, a man who worked for this country so much. There is no insult to beat this one.
The war of words got even more personal.
Talking means destroying the unity of our people. You talk of a majority tribe. What nonsense is that? What is a majority tribe? What is a minority tribe?
As the tribal wars continued, by 1987, over 20,000 Ndebele people had been killed during Gukurahundi. It was vital that the two leaders united for Zimbabwe to succeed. ZANU and ZAPU merged to become ZANU-PF. Mugabe was one step closer to his ultimate goal.
The merger of ZANU and ZAPU was a recognition of the need to submerge traditional or philosophical differences and unite the country. But it also fitted in with Mugabe's ambitions. He'd long expressed the wish to create a one-party state, but was tied to a more democratic system during the 7-year lifespan of the Lancaster House Agreement.
I think Mugabe's biggest threat was himself, while he was in power, and his ruling ZANU-PF party. The opposition had been weakened over the years and silenced to some extent.
This is one way to die. Another is to vote Zoom. Don't commit suicide. Don't be foolish. Vote ZANU-PF and leave.
The most dangerous type of dictatorship is a personalist dictatorship, or one-man rule. And that's because there's no institution to check their power, and these dictators tend to make their decisions in isolation. In the case of Mugabe, he was trying to personalize the regime. He was trying to make every decision on his own, and he almost achieved it.
The role of Prime Minister was abolished, and Mugabe became president, with Nkomo as vice president. Mugabe was edging closer to ultimate rule, but he did make some concessions.
All that remained was to find a way to appease or render harmless the ZAPU dissidents, and that too was achieved.
Government has decided to grant a general amnesty to the following categories of persons. 1, dissidents. 2, PF ZAPU's political fugitives from justice. 3, persons under detention or imprisonment for collaborating with dissidents.
Nkomo was no longer a threat, but Mugabe needed to maintain the loyalty of his people.
Usually dictators are able to stay in power to a point without using violence, so long as they control the flow of information to the public. Hitler called the press the Lügenpresse, the lying press. He said that anyone who stood up to his narrative was effectively lying to the public. He called them the enemy of the people, words that were echoed by Mao and Stalin. And so this idea that anyone who says anything that the dictator doesn't agree with is lying, that there is some sort of force against the people, it's a common tactic to turn the public against those sources that challenge the dictator.
Mugabe exiled critical Zimbabwean journalists, and foreign media was strictly controlled or banned.
It's the Mugabe government's efforts to close down the press, both foreign and domestic, plain and simple. They don't want a critical press, they don't want a critical overseas press, and so they're trying to stop it.
Mugabe has, over the years, managed to stay in power by controlling the media.
Mugabe shut down all but one television channel and heavily censored its output.
During his rule, there was no freedom of movement, no freedom of speech, no freedom of expression. As a journalist, many a time, just trying to cover a demonstration, you'll also get caught up and get either beaten up or arrested.
You have to control the media, because once you control the narrative, once you control the information the public consumes, you can control how they think about problems. They also take control of independent sources of information by shutting them off to the public. And that means state media, it means shutting down press outlets that criticize them, and it means jailing their opponents. And this way, there's not really an alternative narrative for the opposition to exploit because they've already been silenced.
Other areas of society were also beginning to feel the pinch. In 1996, strict austerity measures led to civil servants, nurses, and junior doctors to strike over poor pay. Already cash-strapped, 2 years later, Mugabe sent his army to the Congo to fight in their controversial civil war. As a result, international economic aid to Zimbabwe was halted, and the country was millions of dollars worse off.
The mid to late 1990s were characterized by civil unrest, student protest, and this was mainly to do with food shortages and crippling economic crisis in the country at that time.
The people of Zimbabwe were beginning to rebel against Mugabe. And in 1999, he was faced with a new political enemy, where one of his greatest supporters turned against him. In the 2 decades since Mugabe came to power, Zimbabwe had declined into economic and social hardship. Mugabe had put all his resources into building a mega army and tightening his grip on all political rivals.
If you believe that you should have absolute power, you're probably not out for the rest of the country. You're probably out for yourself.
But a new political force had crept onto the scene.
You create hope for the people. They see light at the end of the tunnel.
Morgan Tsvangirai began his political career as an ardent supporter of Mugabe and ZANU-PF. Now, he had his own party, the MDC, Movement for Democratic Change. And it had one aim: to overthrow Mugabe.
The MDC is a government in waiting, is that we have got candid and solid policies which can take Zimbabwe into the future in this millennium, and we've got overwhelming support.
We have moments where dictators are challenged, and that moment of weakness is the first crack very often in a system that is brittle. People rise up because they understand that actually you can have a different type of government, and that is when the tide often turns against dictators.
But Mugabe was undeterred by the political threat Tsvangirai posed, and he turned his attention back to the Land Reform Bill. It had been 20 years, and progress had been painfully slow. 70% of Zimbabwe's agricultural land was still owned by white farmers. Mugabe declared a new constitution, giving the government power to seize farms owned by white farmers, without compensation.
The bill is welcome. It's a relief to the war veterans and the masses of Zimbabwe. The peoples of Zimbabwe have been waiting for this bill to be passed.
But Tsvangirai threw all his weight against it.
They're cutting all corners to ensure that they pretend they are confining themselves to the law.
Equity in land distribution will remain the government's top priority, as the continued hold of land solely by the descendants of colonialists, while blacks wallow in abject poverty, cannot be condoned.
The new constitution was blocked. Mugabe was furious. With his support, a mix of government troops and vigilante groups began seizing white-owned land by force.
War veterans, they were drunk. They were threatening to kill us.
One common pattern of most dictatorships is they have to either manufacture or amplify a threat. So in the case of Hitler, he villainized the Jewish people. In the case of Mugabe, he amplified the threat from white farmers.
It's not a fight against the whites as such. It's a fight, yes, against that particular section of the whites who own land.
When European colonizers came, they forced black people off their farms and took control over the country's agriculture. That all changed in 2000 with the introduction of land reform. And this is a story you might not have heard before, that land reform is working.
We are here forever. We are here forever. Because the Zimbabweans are happy with this reform program.
Land reform was very important in Zimbabwe, and this is why people went to war, to take the land back from the white minority. But when Mugabe decided to deal with this issue, he was doing it for the wrong reasons. And that's why we ended up with the disastrous policy where he allowed desperate peasants to take over white commercial farms without a clear plan. Many of his cronies had multiple farms and did not benefit the country at all.
And they wanted to know when I was going to leave. And I explained to them that this was our home, that 2 generations had built this farm up from nothing. It was this bush. And I said, none of us wanted to leave. But if the law demanded it, we would follow the due course of law.
The new occupants of confiscated farms often included prominent members of the ruling elite. They were either inexperienced, inept, or disinterested in farming. Food production plummeted by 2/3, and the country nosedived into famine and economic decline. Up to 1/4 of the population fled the country, and 3/4 of those who were left were living on less than $1 per day. International sanctions were implemented against Mugabe's land grab policy.
The sanctions are targeted not at the people of Zimbabwe, they've suffered enough, but against the leadership of the government.
The sanctions proved to be a convenient scapegoat for Mugabe.
Our country has in recent years attracted a good deal of international attention, most of which has been extremely negative and quite hostile. Indeed, it could even be said colloquially that Zimbabwe or Mugabe bashing has become an obsessive compulsion in certain circles abroad, but especially in Britain.
Scapegoating is essential for dictatorship because it provides them political cover to deflect blame when things go wrong. It wasn't my fault, they say. It was these enemies of the people who you should blame.
Look at what Britain has tried to do. Mobilize the whole of Europe against us merely because of the land question. Why should they do that?
Protests grew against Mugabe's dictatorship, including from opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai.
These
victory is ours. Don't be accomplices of fear.
We will have the movement now called the movement of dead crooks, cheats, and criminals.
A man who is occupying such a very important national position degenerates to a local village thug. It's despicable.
People's victory at these weekend elections is now certain. The people will vote for change. They will vote for answers to the burning issues of the day. That is starvation, food shortages, collapse of the Zimbabwean economy, joblessness, ever-increasing prices of foodstuffs and other basic commodities, and the lawlessness in the country.
Shangarai was proving a thorn in Mugabe's side. And in the run-up to the 2002 elections, Mugabe accused Shangarai of plotting to kill him. Shangarai was arrested.
I mean, look, this is an occupational hazard. And I may tell you that if at all it has bolstered our determination and our resolve.
What is the rule of law? Does the rule of law mean that Morgan Tsvangirai is a law unto themselves? The allegations of plotting to assassinate a head of state are very serious. Very serious. This whole thing is contrived to damage me politically. The timing is obvious that we're going to a presidential election, and being the chief opponent in the political campaign, that this was all along been part of a ZANU-PF strategy to eliminate me from the race.
Mugabe's tactics paid off. He wasn't going anywhere.
Gabriel Mugabe has been duly declared to be elected as president for a 6-year term of office.
As I sit here, Robert Mugabe is being sworn in as the president of Zimbabwe after this bizarre situation in Zimbabwe. No one could possibly call it an election. Most MDC leadership is in custody or on the run. There are thousands of people living up in the mountains in the bush. They've been burned out of their homes, beaten, and terrorized.
Mugabe managed to stay in power by controlling the state machinery. He controlled the army. He also controlled the police. And to a very large extent, he controlled the opposition, who were weakened and silenced after years of fighting this brutal regime.
When the country went to the polls again in 2007, before he could pose another threat to Mugabe's rule, Shangarai was arrested again and severely beaten. At 78, Mugabe entered his 27th year in power. With each election, voter intimidation and electoral rigging in Mugabe's Zimbabwe were getting more and more out of control.
This is the horrifically burnt face of a young opposition supporter who was inside a rural MDC office when it was petrol-bombed by Mugabe's followers.
The big difference between dictatorships of the past and today is that today they're less brutal, but they're also more durable. And one reason for this is they started to mimic democracies. They hold elections, they have political parties, they have judiciaries, but they figured out clever ways to always ensure that they never lose power.
There is no chance at all one could have imagined that this could be described as a fair election, as a free election. It was neither.
This is a breakdown in civil society. It is a blood-stained regime that is letting down its own people, the whole international community, reflecting the outrage people feel about the violence, the intimidation, and the illegitimate holding of power by the Mugabe government. What we've agreed is that we'll send a United Nations envoy to press for change in Zimbabwe. And what we've also agreed is financial and other sanctions that will be imposed on members of the Zimbabwean regime.
International condemnation had little effect.
We are a sovereign state, and that is it. They can shout as loud as they like from Washington or from London or from any other quarter. Our people, only our people will decide, and no one else.
Mugabe responded to sanctions by attacking his own people. He halted all food aid.
4 million people depend on foreign aid to feed themselves and their families. But the Mugabe regime has now suspended the work of the international organisations that provide and distribute it. Observers say it's a crude and illegal attempt to bully the electorate.
I had the opportunity to meet with the food security experts, the food manufacturing companies and the farmers in order to ascertain the quantities of food available for this season. I'm sad to report that my preliminary findings in this exercise show a state of emergency in the area of food security, with the disastrous consequences if we take too long to attend to this crisis.
And the message is that we believe the government is sending to the communities is that we hold the persons that have food. And if you do not support the ruling ZANU-PF in this election, you will go hungry.
Mugabe has, over the years, learned to use the fear factor to control the masses, whether it's controlling the media through how he controls information and communication, through food distribution, especially in the rural areas. If you don't support ZANU-PF, you don't get food, period.
Due to overprinting of banknotes, Zimbabwe's currency was fluctuating wildly, and inflation reached a new high of 200 million%. Severe food shortages continued and health services deteriorated, coinciding with a cholera outbreak. Seeing the lengths Mugabe was prepared to go to in order to hold on to his power, Tsvangirai had little choice but to withdraw his candidacy for president and concede defeat to Mugabe in the 2008 elections.
We know that whatever we did, he was going to lead to a predetermined outcome. If we participated, he was going to claim victory. If we don't, he's going to claim victory. This is what has happened. The inauguration is a meaningless exercise. The world has said so, Zimbabweans have said so. So it's an exercise in self-delusion. He cannot solve the economic problem. He cannot solve the 8 million% inflation.
Mugabe was sworn in for a 6th presidential term.
After the 2008 elections, Mugabe faced a restless electorate. And so he used the state machinery to silence perceived enemies of the state. Journalists, opposition members, civil society organizations, even human rights organizations were not spared.
Surprisingly, in the parliamentary elections, ZANU-PF lost its majority in the House of Assembly for the first time since independence in 1980.
Mugabe was forced to form a government of national unity with the opposition leader, Morgan Tsvangirai.
Tsvangirai was made Zimbabwe's first prime minister since Mugabe had abolished the post in 1987, when he became president.
I don't see any reason why we can't work together as Zimbabweans, and we are all sons of the soil, as we say.
The economic and political situation stabilized for a while during this 5-year power-sharing period in Zimbabwe.
And when the country converted to the US dollar, inflation dropped from 50 billion% to nothing overnight.
Five years later, with a date set for the 2013 general election, campaigning was in full swing.
In the heart of Zimbabwe's capital, the largest rally ever held by the opposition. Tens of thousands packed in to hear the final speech from the man vying to unseat President Robert Mugabe. Morgan Tsvangirai believes he has the support to do it, but fears this election could be rigged.
For too many people who died. So we're not afraid to die. I'm also dead. If I don't have peace in my house, if I don't have food in my house, I'm dead. So what am I afraid of?
With the counting here nearly complete, there's a growing air of resignation that these official results will be anything but a true reflection of the voters' wishes. The opposition say they're incensed by the vote rigging they claim has taken place. ITV News has uncovered evidence from the voters' register showing there are more than 100,000 voters aged over 100 in a country whose average life expectancy is just 51.
2013 saw Mugabe take another term as president. Spearheaded by Mugabe, a significant new constitution was voted in, which abolished Tsvangirai's role of prime minister for a second time.
After 33 years in power, Robert Mugabe's rule goes on, and the hopes of those who dared to dream change was coming to Zimbabwe have been deflated.
Despite health concerns, Mugabe put himself forward for the 2018 presidential elections.
Dictators never give up power willingly. There's not usually a peaceful ending or a resolution to dictatorships, but the fear that they're going to be killed by an angry mob is sufficient to force them to use more and more brutality the closer they get to their regime's demise.
They brutalized me, and left me for dead. I suffered most on my hand because I tried to protect my head. He is a tyranny. He is a dictator. He is someone who has seen many, many people cry. He is someone who has made many, many people suffer.
The protest and the crackdown is over the government's desperate answer to a crippling economic crisis. They're called bond notes. For the first time in a decade, Zimbabwe is printing its own money. So overnight they queue for the banks to open, hoping for some of this nation's shrinking store of US dollars, Zimbabwe's currency since the days of hyperinflation. What they get is the bond note, and the fear it will lead them back to those ruinous times. For Zimbabwe's leader, the coming months will tell if this is a quick fix for economic failure or a final fatal folly.
In the lead-up to the elections, Mugabe sacked his vice president. This fueled speculation that he was paving the way for his much younger wife, Grace, as his successor.
I'm sure it's handing the power down from father to wife, to daughter to son. Maybe that's what they want, to make it a dynasty.
Sometimes dictatorships are able to survive even after the dictator dies because they've groomed a successor, very often a family member. So you have rumors of this happening in Zimbabwe with Grace Mugabe, the successor to Robert Mugabe. And this already happened in North Korea, where Kim Jong-un replaced his father, Kim Jong-il, who has been groomed since birth for the eventual job of becoming a dictator.
Zimbabwe decided that enough was enough. Mugabe was placed under house arrest by the Zimbabwean National Army.
There's also the exit strategy by military coup, which ends very, very badly for the dictators.
Is it a coup or not a coup?
I'm saying African coups have got a way of turning out to be nasty. This one was a correction by the army, an intervention, a timely and expeditious intervention on a situation which would have deteriorated.
Mugabe was given an ultimatum: resign or face impeachment.
I was expecting his resignation, and I was expecting him, I would be happy for him, despite everything that he has done, to leave with dignity and to just walk away. The generals would have let him walk away peacefully and with his dignity, but he refused to do that.
To the world's surprise, days later, Mugabe changed his mind. At 93 years old, Mugabe was granted full diplomatic status. Rather than facing jail, he was given a mansion with up to 23 staff members and several vehicles. Presidential elections were held without Mugabe as a candidate for the first time in 37 years.
I think the worst thing that Mugabe ever did was bringing this pain to his own people. I would never have thought I'd spend more than 17 years living outside of my country because of him when he banned a group of journalists, including myself. Millions of Zimbabweans have had to live outside their own country because of his rule.
The legacy that Mugabe left for Zimbabwe has been catastrophic. It's not just the fact that he led the country into economic disarray. but he has left in his wake an authoritarian regime.
If Mugabe had balanced it and put in place proper land reforms or proper political reforms and really thought about his people and not just the wishes of a few, maybe he could have been the next Nelson Mandela.
Mugabe left a legacy of nearly 4 decades of political corruption, bloodshed, human rights violations, famine and guerrilla wars, and left Zimbabweans with a momentous task of rebuilding their country and a brighter future for its people, free from dictatorship. New President Emmerson Mnangagwa had promised to restore Zimbabwe's economy, end corruption, and promote human rights. But in the wake of the regime change, Mugabe's damaged Zimbabwe was proving difficult to rebuild. Robert Gabriel Mugabe died on the 6th of September 2019. Following weeks of argument between his family and the Zimbabwean government about where he should be laid to rest, he was buried at his family home and given a hero's funeral. Mugabe, it seems, remains controversial, even from the grave.